lot of restless noise. My location has changed, so you guys can see a little bit of my view, which doesn't exist in Toronto these days, thanks to the rain. Um, Today we are going to be doing a follow-up episode on what we have talked last week, tariffs, what have been the recent development, and I think everything from that topic is kind of like I think हमारे naturally जो है हम we can go into other topics, which is like what's happening to Canadian elections, what's been happening on immigration level in US, and uh, what's been happening in the stock market and all of it. I think it's all very correlated to each other. So sideways, बड़े natural होंगे throughout the conversation today. Um, so as I spoke in the last episode as well, that for somebody who sees market not as deeply as maybe you two do, I have, for me, it's been very interesting to watch everything. I think I've learned about economy in past 2-3 weeks more than I have ever thought I would. The last time there was recession, I was busy studying, so I didn't have time. Uh, so I'm a bit confused, and I'm not confused because there's a tariff war going on between China and US. I'm a bit confused because we talked a lot in last episode of how these tariffs could make sense if you put tariffs on certain fields. You want to do a fair playground, or like there's a policy that Republicans were always wanted to have, या फिर Democrats ने भी अपनी last government में कुछ tariffs like as it is रखे रहे थे जो कि Trump ने impose किए थे. But now it seems more like I don't know, being in a Middle Eastern bazaar and being like ना तुम्हारा ना मेरा, like 70 नहीं तो 80 नहीं तो these are now at what we are at 145% tariffs to China, and they are saying 125%. What do you guys think about it, and how are you seeing it? Other than hilariously, but what other opinions do you both have? And I want Ali you to start and tell me how you feeling about all of it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so there has been a lot of development, there has been a lot of fuss, and there has been a lot of confusion, to be very honest. I think right now there is no person other than Trump himself and his close circle who can 100% predict or who can 100% outlay their plan. और ये सारी चीज़ नज़र आ रही है आपको स्टॉक मार्केट में, ये सारी चीज़ नज़र आ रही है आपको कंट्रीज के रिलेशन में, क्योंकि टैरिफ्स अब like as you said, like there are so many sidelines. They are affecting countries' relations, they are affecting economies, they are affecting like majorly all major stock markets. Stock market एक फेक न्यूज़ भी आती है कि टैरिफ पास होंगे तो स्टॉक मार्केट फौरन बोझ बैक करती है. फिर उसके बाद जब टैरिफ आके पास होते हैं 90 days के लिए, although not for China, some other countries retaliated, which is Canada. तो उन फिर अगेन से स्टॉक मार्केट लाइक एक हिस्टोरिक गेन करती है. दैट्स मीन के ऑल आइज आर ऑन टैरिफ्स. अब as you said, like it's confusing. So हमने last time, I want to go back and discuss few things कि हमने last time कुछ टारगेट्स डिस्कस किए थे कि हो सकता है कि ये पॉसिबल टारगेट्स हैं जो कि ऑब्वियसली 1-2 वीक्स के अंदर यूएस ने अचीव नहीं किए, ना कर सकता है, ना वो कोई प्लान था नजर आता. सो आई थिंक दोस टारगेट्स इफ देयर एनी आर स्टिल रेलेवेंट. हमने कहा कि यूएस की मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंडस्ट्री बैडली मुतासर है, दे वांट टू रिवाइव दैट. तो एक तो वो चीज़ है, उसके उसके ऊपर कोई डिस्कशन नज़र नहीं आई. उसके ऊपर कोई अभी तक आपको जितने एग्जेक्टिव ऑर्डर्स डे 1 से साइन हो रहे हैं, कोई मेजर डेवलपमेंट आपको नज़र नहीं आई. टैरिफ्स को जिस तरह से अभी कंट्रीज को एक देखा जाए तो एक मैडमैन थ्योरी है ना, कि मैडमैन टैक्टिक्स अप्लाई जाएंगे, फिर लेवरेज क्रिएट की जाएगी. तो क्या वो लेवरेज क्रिएट हो पा रही है? इन माय ओपिनियन आई डोंट थिंक सो. देयर इज नो सब्सटेंशियल, लाइक अब कुछ कंट्रीज हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल अगर आप हमने डिस्कस किया श्रीलंका को या कुछ इस तरह कंट्रीज को, दे नेवर हैड लेवरेज टू स्टार्ट विथ.
Yeah.
They were never in equation. Pakistan was never in equation. India had some leverage. Canada has some leverage. China has most leverage in this equation. EU as a collective maybe has some leverage. So क्या वो टेबल पे आए हैं, क्या उन्होंने negotiations की हैं? Trump has been saying that countries have been kissing his whatever, but so far we haven't seen any major win for Trump. I think Trump is very desperate right now for a
Yeah,
vote.
he is.
अगर ये
I think
सारी
other than
चीज,
Cambodia, nobody actually reached out.
yeah, so there has been claims, but वो claims जब तक public नहीं होते या substantiate नहीं होते, तो like to me they are just claims. अब
Mhm.
हो क्या रहा है, एक थोड़ी सी क्लैरिटी आ रही है कि चाइना इज डेफिनेटली देयर बिगेस्ट टारगेट राइट नाउ.
Yeah.
अब चाइना की इंडस्ट्री सर्विसेज से हटके कंप्लीटली एक्सपोर्ट बेस्ड इंडस्ट्री है. उनकी सर्विसेज लोकल ही हैं, लाइक दे कैटर देयर ओन मार्केट, राइट. इट्स नॉट
Mhm.
लाइक गूगल और दिस काइंड ऑफ Amazon, दिस काइंड ऑफ कंपनीज, माइक्रोसॉफ्ट. अब टैरिफ्स होंगे 125 140%, तो दैट्स मीन उनकी इकोनॉमी मेजरली हिट होगी. बाकी कंट्रीज
Yes.
को पास किया जाता है, दैट्स मीन देयर इज अ रूम फॉर नेगोशिएशन.
Mhm.
सो फार ट्रम्प इज नॉट गिविंग एनी रूम फॉर चाइना. वो उनको टेबल पे लाने की दावत है, बट चाइना इज सेइंग कि हम इक्वल टर्म्स पे टेबल्स पे आएंगे. अब वो
Yes.
इक्वल टर्म्स उनकी नज़र में जो हैं, वो मुझे अचीव होती नज़र फिलहाल नहीं आ रही. बट अल्टीमेटली चाइना के ऊपर भी बड़ा प्रेशर है इकोनॉमी का, जॉबलेसनेस आएगी. ट्रम्प के ऊपर लोकल प्रेशर है. चाइना वो लोकल प्रेशर हैंडल कर लेगा बिकॉज इट्स अ वेरी सेंट्रलाइज कंट्रोल्ड मतलब जो उनका स्टाइल ऑफ गवर्नेंस है. तो अब जो लास्ट वीक से अभी तक चीज़ें चेंज हुई हैं, वो ये हुई हैं कि अब विद इन रिपब्लिकन्स भी काफ़ी ज़्यादा प्रेशर माउंट हो रहा है. इवन पीपल हु वोटेड फॉर ट्रम्प आर नॉट हैप्पी. कॉमन पीपल जिनको जिनको ट्रम्प से कुछ और उम्मीदें थी, अब हमने देखा है मैस प्रोटेस्ट होने स्टार्ट शुरू हो गए हैं. सोशल मीडिया पे काफ़ी ज़्यादा गुस्सा है. ये गुस्सा किस हद तक आगे रिफ्लेक्ट होता नजर आता है या किस हद तक पुश बैक आती है, आई एम नॉट श्योर. बट this past week has been, in my opinion, really bad for Trump. He hasn't achieved anything. His team hasn't achieved
Mhm.
anything. They have made the situation more worse by, क्योंकि एक एक बंदा आता है ट्रम्प की टीम का क्लोज बंदा, वो कहता है कि हम ये टैक्टिक है, ये
Yeah.
स्ट्रेटजी है. वो कहता है नहीं, ये स्ट्रेटजी नहीं है, दिस हैज बैकिंग, क्योंकि वो आगे भी देख रहे हैं ना ये चीज़ें चैलेंज भी होंगी, सारा कुछ होगा. सो जो उनकी इंटरनल कंफ्यूजन है, जो इंटरनल रिफ है, फिर एलन मस्क की जो उसकी ओपनली क्रिटिसिज्म आती है, रिटार्ड करता है उसको, सारा कुछ होता है. तो
Yeah.
टीम के अंदर दरारें हैं. ट्रम्प की क्लैरिटी पहले जो नजर आता था ना, नहीं ये बड़ा सोचा समझा प्लान है, मुझे लगता है कोई इतना सोचा समझा, बस वो मैडमैन थ्योरी थी. शायद हमने थोड़ा सा उसको समझा कि शायद दिस इज ट्रम्प 2.0, मे बी इट्स 1.5.
Maybe it's 0.5.
So now what's interesting is I was listening to so Trevor Noah's podcast, and he has this guy on his podcast who runs another podcast called I think Ink on Elon. So he has been following Elon Musk trajectory all his life, and he's been talking about so he's talking about there was this whole conversation going on. And it was a very interesting conversation. I do not necessarily agree with whatever they were saying, but there are a lot of points where they were talking about a lot of technocrats spending money and putting their eggs into politicians' basket. अब हमने देखा है in last few days, Elon Musk came out and he actually said that I would like ideally to not have zero tariffs between EU and US. And so there's this other guy who is Peter Thiel, who was the first person who invested in Trump's campaign far back when Trump was running. And people has been saying that, oh, why he did not invest as much as Elon did, uh, as he has done. Though the vice president का जो career है पूरी की पूरा उसका main donor was him, like JD Vance main donor was Peter Thiel. Uh, a lot of people are saying it's more of like a high risk, high return situation. For them, it's not a dent, the amount of money they have spent into it, but somewhere, even in the Silicon Valley, especially to CEOs and the people who are venture capitalists, have been regretting in a lot of ways of what's been happening, because डायरेक्ट कंज्यूमर को तो जो नुकसान होना है वो होना है, which is not very
बिग
like,
टेक ने बहुत पैसा दिया ना.
yes,
Trump broke his own record of like I think this time he collected 170 million or something.
yeah,
Last time it was 111 or something. And as a comparison, Obama was around 40 or something. But some of that was choice, like इस इंडस्ट्री से नहीं लेने या उस इंडस्ट्री से
mm,
पैसे नहीं लेने.
yeah.
रिटर्न ऑन
So
कैपिटल अभी तक काफी बैड चल रहा है सबका.
yes, so now what everybody is predicting is he has 2 years. He doesn't have more than that, because 2 साल बाद midterm elections होने हैं, they're going to lose a lot of Congress and Senate seats. So what they want to accomplish, they have to do it within these 2 years.
दैट्स द
So,
आइडिया.
okay. So, how are you saying this, Tosi? Do you think he's gonna be able to last the support of the technocrats, like the people like Elon Musk and everybody would stand with him? Because I don't know. I'm just really waiting for a live breakup.
No, no, I don't think so. And I think that's what we discussed at the start of it, that like eventually the burden of this whole thing is gonna go so big that it will be like people like Elon Musk, they're gonna feel this pressure from their investor base and eventually the board of directors, that this is too much and maybe it's not worth the risk. Um, but going back to actually like what they wanted to achieve through
Hmm.
all that, so I want to walk back on what I said last week. um, I think given the amount of so in the last like 3 to 4 days, so their economy team, at least they do understand economy. The kind of capitulation that we have seen in the last couple of days, if any of them thought that they would impose such tariffs and market would not fall that much, they are dumb.
Yeah.
Like, and like tell these numbers, the kind of tariffs you imposed on rest of the world. So my understanding was that of course market is gonna fall, it's gonna fall significantly, but I think they're willing to take that brunt.
Hmm.
But in the last couple of days we have seen that so they have put hold on tariffs for 90 days on the rest of the world. For China, they kept reciprocating. So did China. And now today, we are seeing like statements from Peter Navarro and actually some of the other members of Trump's team as well. So they are kind of softening the stance, right? So that feels like they want to take this towards a conversation now. So that means a lot of the a lot of the initial things that you did, you had little understanding of what the blowout could be, which tells a lot of this was not well planned or not fully thought through. That was my perception last week when it all started happening. But
Hmm.
once we started seeing like the first order, second order effects of it, and remember this thing, so if they didn't foresee that, like there are, if they stick with it, there are going to happen certain things in the economy, like inflation's gonna go up, job losses are gonna happen, there gonna be bankruptcies. I'm not sure if they pictured that in their calculations. If they did not, then they're in an even worse situation. So I think right now what's happening is like some of the cooler heads, or people who are able to better understand the situation, um, are basically telling them how bad it is, and maybe we need to walk back on some of the steps that we have taken. So I think that is what's happening. About the people from tech, I think so far their trades, so they basically traded in favor of Trump. So it has been backfiring for most of them, talking about Apple and all of them. And especially like you would have seen in the last couple of days, the frustration and the kind of exchange happening between Peter Navarro and Elon Musk. Like he called him like sack of bricks and Peter Retardo or whatnot, and the punches they have been taking at each other. Um, it's all like telling that it's not going well, and I don't think so far it feels that. I think at this point it has become more of a a match of ego between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping. I think eventually how it's gonna get settled, eventually someone from the lower ranks from both sides, they're gonna have like a backdoor conversation, and that's
Mhm.
how the temperatures will be brought down, and eventually it's gonna get settled somewhere in the middle.
So,
I think
yeah.
one thing is, I think they definitely had, because that's a very obvious thing that stock market will behave bad. I think there might be two things where they went wrong. One was Trump being too confident that everybody will come on table, and this
Mhm.
tariff situation will not long this last. Maybe exception was China, but nobody has so far responded. Like even Canada retaliated, right? Remember that pressure in the early on, like Daniel Smith and everything, they were like, "Oh, no retaliation" and everything, because they were not expecting a retaliation. Second thing, I think they didn't expect bond yields. So that has been a really, even when they talk, they have been like really shameful in a way, like they don't, like the investor doesn't have any option right now. So even for a short bit of time, when the stock market is down, investor can like go into bonds and like seek some time there. But right now, and now interest rate, like they can say, yeah, inflation is down, inflation is in control. But I don't think if the feds will cut the rate, so that is also not working in there. But secondly, like to see if, and this is me just asking for more clarity. So we are saying this is a fight, or this is a ego show between Trump and Xi.
Yeah,
As someone as outsider, I just
mhm.
want to understand what option does China have if one country is imposing, like let's say, 140% tariffs, 45% tariffs. Like what should they do right now to control the situation? Like by what terms should they come on the table?
um So, firstly, China needs to consider exactly what the US needs to consider, which is who's gonna take a beating due to all of that. It's the common man. It's the common man in the US, it's the common man in the China.
Mhm.
So, eventually, what they both need to do is they if it is so much for their ego, they should probably designate someone from the lower ranks and have them sit at the table and sort this out. That's what I was hinting at.
Acha, and
But
It's
financial, like, this is like a general picture. But financial,
mhm.
like, what do they say? Do they just accept the higher tariffs because that's what Trump want, right?
no, that's If anyone thinks that things will get settled at
No, no,
125%
not
tariffs,
100. Even to start with, even to start with the 40%, I don't think that's an equal term for China.
Mm.
Like that's they have been saying equal terms, right? Equal terms means equal tariffs, right? If there are any.
no, not necessarily. Equal terms means something that they both agree to. For instance, let me give
No,
you a
but
picture.
that's leverage. That's leverage. That's not equal terms.
No,
That's what
no.
Trump has been trying to create.
Yeah, yeah, but
Like you
if
agree for what you can't lose, right? You agree for what
yeah,
makes sense to you.
exactly. Exactly. Let me give you an example. Let's say if both sides agree that US gets to impose, let's say, so and so percentage of tariffs and XYZ industry, of course China is never going to agree on across the board like 30%, 40%
Mm.
tariffs. It's not going to happen. Everyone knows that. So let's say US agrees to that, and in return China gets like no embargo on chips. If they both agree to that, it's a win-win for both of them, and just move on. Just settle this, guys. That's what I'm saying.
So maybe it's bigger than egos then. It is national interest for both of them.
Y- Yeah, but
Like how let's say China just say, oh, we can't lose that chip control because if we never, and that's true for
mhm,
any country,
mhm,
if they don't have access to chips, like the future is just stone for them.
yeah,
So I think maybe like what my point is, it's not just as simple or as personal for each of them as we may think. There are national interests. There are obviously there is too much politics involved, mainly from US side, because as Mariam and you highlighted, Trump maybe only has 2 years. China can prolong it,
yeah. That's
and
that. That's what they're
they
missing.
have been saying like we are ready for, in the use a term like eating bitter or something.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
So
Which is true. Like if you are fighting a battle in which you have two
limited
years,
time.
and at the other time has like infinite time, you have very you have basically a pair of twos in a poker, you would say. You don't have
Yeah.
much to play. So US has a bigger chance of losing this if they keep dragging it.
and also
Yeah.
because this is the second time, and China seems to be a little bit more prepared. I'm not saying China doesn't have pains. China has a lot of pains in this,
Yeah.
but seems a little bit more prepared than last time.
Yeah, they certainly are. It was actually, if you were following the conversation before the results of this last election in November, they were concluded. China's like government owned, of course they some of the outlets are totally government owned. They started sending out this message that we are aware that Trump can go in a certain direction and we are prepared for it, and they kept iterating that over and over. So yeah, there is no doubt that they were well prepared. A lot of these calculations they might have done already.
So there's another analysis that I was listening to. This very right wing economist, and he has said that when the way situation was going, um, if it was very targeted to China, we could have been in a better situation because finally, like EU, Canada, all of these allies have already came on this side that okay, we need to put and to a lot of this subsidized industry. We need to put end to them dumping our markets. We need to really close up the IP theft and all of this. And everybody, like Canada, has put 100% tariffs on their EVs last year, at the end of last year. You see in the EU market, we talked about solar panels and everything. They have done it. But what Trump did with everybody else kind of put now he it went from isolating China to isolating themselves because now he
Yeah,
has opened so many battles that everybody's
I
kind of
think
mad
that's
at
what they
him.
want.
that
That's
is
what they want.
100% correct.
Because उन्होंने start tariffs ही नहीं किया, उन्होंने start किया no NATO,
Yeah,
no EU support, getting out of
climate
Ukraine,
change thing. Yeah,
so climate
Ukraine
change as
thing.
well. So cutting all like US aid, all of those public universal arms. So tariffs just started like 3 weeks ago.
Mhm.
All of that happened like to very on the very from the very since the very first day. So maybe that's what US wants right now.
I so in trying to make sense of uh, like their policy towards Europe and especially related to Russia, the I heard this remark somewhere and it made a lot of sense that he like, and it's a Trump thing, like this administration, they genuinely have this hate towards Europe. They do not like them, and that is confirmed when you see JD Vance speaking in that
Yeah.
in that event that happened in Germany, and the kind of exchange that they had in the conversation that got leaked about those Yaman attacks that they were carrying out.
Mhm.
So there is like genuinely this they don't like the Europeans in general, and they have like this tilted view that um, they call them like the freeloaders, and they have lived off of they have ripped off the US for so long, and probably the administration has this expectation that they probably want to recoup some of that money. I don't know. I don't understand how, but yeah, that has been that it this this explanation I heard, and it totally made sense. And we continue to keep seeing like examples of it, like every time any one of them speaks, all of a sudden out of nowhere Europe comes all of a sudden into the discussion, and then they have like a few this group has like a bunch of talking points that they would start spitting. So I think there is that thing as
तो
well.
अगर ये इस इक्वेशन से ईयू को निकाल दें, कनाडा को निकाल दें, तो इनके एलाइज में फिर बचता कौन है?
Exactly. Like that's my question as well. Because I get, yeah, you can hate people. I mean, there are a lot of people you work with and you don't like them, but you're not, you don't really build your relationships, especially on a foreign, like relationships, based on the idea, okay, if I like these people or I don't like these people. You need to have like, you need to work together eventually. Like, it's not like America's going to have their own planet and be like, oh, we can live alone.
It
Right.
also
So
might be the thing which the safe is hinting. It also might be because how Trump was treated during his last term by because Trump
EU?
was very you I mean having all the issues with Trump or whatnot, but they are seeing Trump very differently than the last Trump. Remember all the like singling him out during the conferences and like making
Yeah.
fun and everything. So maybe that's the that now he has created more leverage in his views at least. So he is taking it out.
also I heard this there was a guy mentioning that of course him being a president he would have access to all the intelligence reports and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So he was basically saying that he exactly knows what the European leadership thinks of him, and how like if you know what these people say about you behind closed doors, how can you how can you not like hate them? So yeah, there was this angle as well that
Acha,
made sense.
again, I agree. Like I understand it. Like I don't agree, but I understand you
But not
finding
on a
out that
personal
people
level.
don't have a yeah, yeah. I get that, but like EU leaders don't even have good opinions about each other either. Like if you know the closed door opinions of French, of Germans, and Germans of Dutch, and all of them, they just
But
don't
Trump
get.
politics has always been very personal. Even when he
Yeah.
talks, he says, I like that guy. I personally think Putin
Mhm.
or whatever person he's talking, even when Imran Khan was visiting, he always says things which are
Individuals.
personal to individuals. He's very into
Yeah,
individuals.
he likes individuals who have a lot of power, and that is again something that is missing from Europe, right?
Okay.
So yeah, there is that dynamic
He's
as well.
populist. Obviously, he got
Yeah,
attracted to
but
the
talking
scene.
about the question that you were asking, that what allies are there of the US. So to understand that, we need to see why were the allies in the first place. So there was a bunch of things. First is they share a certain view of how governments should be, like democracy and all. There
Mhm.
is that angle. The biggest angle is the economy. Um, they are they have a certain level of dependency. US is a huge consumer market. So US
Mhm.
consumes like 18, 19 trillion a year, right? So
Yeah.
that means that is a huge marketplace where you can go and sell your products. China is a big economy, but they're a producer economy.
Mm.
They're not a consumer economy. And they're a kind of economy that is right now dealing with deflation. So at this point, if even if I am like a leader of some of these European countries, let's put together let's put aside the democracy thing, and let's if we think about purely economic terms, if even if I have to distance myself from US, it's gonna be a project of decades. Because let's say, for in a hypothetical scenario, I today sever my ties, or go into the other camp, right? So
Mhm.
all of my population had access to this marketplace where they could sell $20 trillion worth of goods. It's gone. And I, being a democracy, am answerable to those people.
Mhm.
So I think the bigger reason why a lot of these people will still stick in the Western camp would be the dependence of their economies on the US.
But that won't matter much when you don't have government to government relationship. Like people will pivot away. Tariffs are going to make it happen much sooner than we think.
Mhm.
That
I,
that's
yeah.
why they would continue to keep that relationship going, despite being
Yeah, and I
that
think we
joker
have
being in
already
government.
seen the signs, like EU talking with China now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
6 months ago, we wouldn't have imagined.
right, absolutely. I think even bigger example is their trade ministers met between Japan, Korea, and China.
Mhm.
That was
Yeah.
even bigger example than
Example, then the EU
Europeans
talking
having
to
a
China.
conversation
Yeah,
with
and I think
Chinese.
China knows this, and I think they're covering Malaysia, a few other countries like in the upcoming visit, and I think they're gonna
Yeah.
try to capture the gap which US is leaving
Oh,
them.
absolutely. I think it's like a field day for Chinese
Yeah,
diplomats. Like all of
yeah,
them should be on planes to all of these countries,
Yeah.
trying to catch their attention. Maybe like tell them, maybe you're not fully aligned with us, but you can probably count on us, as opposed to US, where we don't know what their policy is on one day or the next. So yeah, sure, that's gonna happen.
yeah. This is a marketing point for them. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
I also want to point out here is that I understand what you're saying, Tosif, that there would be a pressure from people, but like so far what I could tell you from the experience in Canada, I was at a symphony orchestra a couple of weeks ago. Uh, I've been there multiple times in the last 6 years. It's one of the go-to thing that I do. Never They never played Canadian national anthem before performances. They did. The performer who was the headliner, she has a 40 years experience. She is a Dutch girl. Uh, she was wearing red, and the first thing she said was she took a mic and she's like, "I'm like with all my heart Canadian." That happens. Uh, Yesterday, I was at Rex, which is jazz club. The performer was American, but he has taught at University of Toronto. Uh, started his performance by saying, "We really love Canada. I would love to be here. I really like coming here. All in all, just wanted to give a heads up." I like it's getting a bit like people are like, I feel like there is a sentiment. I think Canada never had a sentiment against US. Uh yes, they do not agree on a lot of things. They do find them very ridiculous in a lot of ways. Especially their patriotism does not make a lot of sense to Canadians. That has always been my conversation with people who grew up here. They don't understand that kind of nationalism and patriotism, but there is a sudden change, there's a sudden shift, and I feel like that's gonna move faster for other countries as well, because you don't see it here, but if you go to EU, they're very proud of their countries. They're
Yeah,
very proud of their cultures. They are very proud of their heritage. So you cannot just go around saying things about them and people do not take it to their heart. If you can turn a country like Canada into a nationalist, patriotic country,
you can
I
turn
think,
anyone.
yeah, you can turn anyone. So that
Yeah,
for
it's a
me,
litmus test. Canada is a litmus test. If Canada do it, that's mean the other countries
Yeah,
gonna
so that
do
is
it.
all true. And it's so appropriate, the graphic that I shared, where all the European countries, their tourism, the tourists that travel to US, it's like has just fallen off the cliff,
yep.
right? So that is all true. But there are things that are true when you have money in your wallet.
Hmm.
So we have all seen what has happened in recent elections with economies that were dealing with inflation and going through an economic crunch. When those things happen, ideas and everything flows out of the window. So that's my point. It's a lot of the people in my understanding fail to wrap their heads around that the biggest incentive for two countries to be together is economic, nothing else.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. Yeah, once you have once the goods start flowing across the border, once you keep delivering and receiving services, things change, and then other layers gets built on top of that. But remember, at the core of it is like an economic relation between the two countries. um, that economic relationship can change, but slowly. It's gonna be like a process, a lengthy process. Why I don't see it happening is because I know what's happening in US is a one-off thing. It's the last term of Donald Trump, and we have already seen Democrats, which by the way, a month or so ago they were all like, people were finding where the Democrats, like why are we not hearing from them, and all of a sudden they are all out and speaking. And I
Having
think,
rallies, yeah.
yeah, I think yesterday, uh, I saw Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State in the last Biden government. He was out on CNBC specifically talking about economy. So that was basically sending a signal from the Democrats to the rest of the world and EU, that
I
and,
think
and,
that
and
becomes
calling all of the,
more.
sorry.
No, no, just complete. I will complete
Yeah,
after you.
and calling basically all of the policies from Trump like idiotic and everything, and also mentioning how hard it's gonna be to roll back a lot of the damage that he has done in a couple of months and all that. So I think Democrats are out there doing that, and eventually we're gonna see, even once Trump is gone, whoever forms the next government, a lot of these things. There is a good chance, by the way, even in this Trump's government, the pressure mounts so much that they have to undo a lot of that they have done. But whoever forms the next government, a lot of this is going to get undone.
I think this bit is more important than only the financial leverage that US has. We need to understand. So that bit which Seth is mentioning is like US having change of a heart or change of policies. That will make or keep US as relevant as US is today. I don't see a world where US keep doing what Trump is doing right now and staying as important as relevant with all the financial exclusiveness it has.
Mhm.
Countries will find new markets. Most of EU countries or most of other countries had many of those restrictions on other economies because of US.
US.
So if you remove all of those economies, you will see a reshuffle. For example, India was never this much big of an economy like 20 years ago.
Okay.
So you have emergent, you have Indonesia, you have Pakistan even becoming 3 trillion economy in like next some years,
Mhm.
right? So US is not going to be the only market where money can be made. Yes, it's the biggest market, but what are you going to do with that market if you don't find this equation which keeps making you money? If that market is so unreliable, for example, you being investor, as we said, like money is most important. Will you be more inclined toward a stable market or somewhere where today you build your supply chain and tomorrow you're going to be kicked out of that supply chain, just like
because
growing
of
in
Trump.
automobile? So as I said, like if these things stay relevant, the financial aspect goes out of the window. US has to change their attitude to stay relevant. Just the financial leverage is not going to give them or keep
Yeah,
them.
of course, government
Yeah.
policy certainty is like an absolute
So
import.
that's what I'm saying. The financial leverage is not as big as we might think.
I think the correct sideway here is, I'm going to talk a little bit about their travel policies and immigration and deportation here. And the reason I'm bringing it here is not just the political reason that they have been deporting their students because of protest and everything. We talked about how there's a decline. बहुत कम लोग travel कर रहे हैं अब EU से, and you can see a proper decline from other countries as well. In last couple of weeks, we have seen reports of being Canadians detained uh, in US for 2 weeks without no understanding of why it happened, like how there's like that girl actually wrote a whole article which she says कि if like my whole government, politicians, my friends, everybody was like media, everybody was advocating for me, and it took them 2 weeks to get me out. There are people who's nobody's advocating for them. I so I'm thinking as a businessman, because we have seen it back in Pakistan, right? अगर आपके पास एक स्टेबिलिटी नहीं है, आपके पास सिक्योरिटी नहीं है, आपको नहीं पता आप वहां जाते हैं तो आप वापस आ सकते हैं कि नहीं आ सकते. I understand that it's a different market. आप पाकिस्तान जाते हैं, आपकी अपनी जिंदगी को थ्रेट होती है. But isn't it the same thing? If I'm a businessman, this girl runs a business in LA, uh, and I'm traveling and I don't know if I could pass through the immigration or not. Would I would consider shifting my business, wouldn't I? That's something that I'm thinking, because it's not just the tariffs, it's also the other policies, right? You run you run screaming to the whole world in past 100 years that we are different than the imperials that we got freedom from. We do not believe in monarchy. We are the leader of the free world. We believe in free speeches. And today, I like, yeah, it's been happening for a couple of years, but now you are putting everybody into the same bucket. हम तो थे ही उस bucket में, but you're putting everybody
I
into that
know
bucket.
I know someone who's working in US nuclear industry.
Mhm.
He left his pregnant wife back home because he was expecting that there will be very tough security on the airport.
Yeah,
So just imagine like his wife is in like 7 8 months,
yeah,
so he might not be able to come back like
yeah.
when she's gonna deliver a baby. And they were planning to have baby in the US. Now, like I'm just saying, this is how much it's affecting
Yeah, yeah,
personal relation as
Yes.
well.
So my question here is that I get that, oh yeah, you can create leverage with tariffs, but suddenly you are dropping everything that you sort of stand for, and and you're really going out cracking down on people for having an opinion, for people who you disagree with, people who you think looks like Venezuelan gang members, because you literally haven't done any kind of background checks. Do you really think these policies, like, what's you gonna undo in next 2 years? Let's say you get in midterm, you get more votes and everything and stuff. Do you really think it's gonna change how suddenly US is like it's mistrusted, right? It's a huge mistrust from every single country out there. Um, what do you think is going to happen? Because to me that is like I get there's a financial transaction between countries and all of that, but I feel like if you once create this kind of mistrust for people, I'm not taking my business there. Like GM Motors yesterday, like I think a few days ago, decided to halt, and now they shut down their plant in Ontario. They had major layoffs today. It's the second plant that's being shut down after this happened. uh, I get it, but it's also going to have for a lot of Canadians. Like we have seen a lot of Canadian vendors who have businesses in US literally uproot and come back, and they are looking into other markets.
Yeah, so this is the nonsensical uncertainty that has continued for last couple of weeks now. Uh, I why I think this thing will not last long is because US being this capitalist state, in US the markets have the ultimate say, and we saw an example of that today and a couple of days ago. The
The market
markets
reacts.
markets tolerates these things for a few days, but after a certain time the markets dictate the kind of policies that you have, and all of these things that you pointed out would cause a lot of damage to the market, and the markets are not going to stop screaming. And that is why I think it's going to be difficult for even someone like Donald Trump to sustain these things. And just see the capitulation that we have seen in like 3 days. It took just like
Yeah,
3 days, right? Forget about 2 years. In 2 years, as you're going to see like more and more data and information, and these signals from market, these people are just going to fall in line, in my opinion.
Yeah, forget 90 days. This uncertainty can't even last one more month. Current uncertainty, unless they start sitting on a table, start discussing. So that's
Yeah,
a hope, right? And
yeah.
yeah,
works on the hope. So that's different.
Yeah, one thing that could be long lasting is the NATO thing. Those kind of alliances. If so basically two things. One is, that's why I thought the whole dissolving of the US aid was a stupid thing, because that is your way to project soft power in all
hmm,
corners of the world. Okay, if you don't do it, you know what's gonna happen? China's gonna step in everywhere.
Somebody else is gonna replace you.
yeah,
Someone's gonna pretend to be the saint, to be like a solution of the all the problems of people in all parts of the world, and they're gonna start building and harnessing these relationships. So I think that's where they have damage that may take like very long to repair, or they may never be able to repair. And the other is, if they keep pulling out of these alliances like NATO and all of these, uh, I think once you do that, people the next time people will increasingly find it difficult to trust you. And lastly, another critical thing that they are so stupid to pursue is the thing that they are trying to do with Greenland and Panama Canal. Because what it's
yeah,
going to do is, once you do that, you use of force or whatever, you basically give like a blank check to China to do whatever they want to do with Taiwan. Because if you can take Greenland by force,
He's
or
setting a precedent.
yeah, if you
Mm.
take Panama Canal, right, and then let's say the following day China goes after Taiwan, and you ask the rest of the world for your support, and you know the kind of reaction that you're gonna get from them,
Yeah.
right? So I think a lot of these policies do not make sense. Domestically, they're gonna get like this massive reaction for the markets that will help to contain it. Um, Across the nations, I think what's gonna happen is, and we are seeing some examples of that where congressmen across the aisle from Republicans and Democrats are coming together, and they are saying that okay, this thing is like too serious thing to be left for this single guy. So maybe we need to sort this tariff thing out in the Congress, right? So we're gonna see examples of that where eventually some of the Republicans are gonna have the courage to stand up to this guy, and they're gonna of course get support from the Democrats, and that will kind of pave uh, like a way to roll back a lot of what they're trying to do.
So hopefully we will see something better in next few weeks, and we will also see how our elections pan out. It's been interesting the way things have been going, and
Polymarket says Carney is at 81%.
yeah, but the graph looks interesting. The one that you shared was, I think the what I've seen from last news is conservatives has been blocking a lot of media coverage to Pierre, so they don't want him out there
Yeah,
talking.
but one thing which I don't understand is I understand Alberta, but even in one, he is having like very big rallies, very big rallies.
Yeah, yeah.
Polyev?
So yeah, he's having very big rallies.
Possible, but
Like I wouldn't be shocked if that's Alberta because
Mhm.
or some far conservatives, but in GTA in one, that's very impressive. So I'm not sure now how much. Like I know liberals they gained a lot, but I'm not sure how much of poly market. Like I personally do want to trust poly market more than any other pre polls,
Hmm.
but now I seem like maybe both of those numbers are a little bit off. So these election that just make these elections more fun to watch.
but even in the polls, he has like significant margin
No, he does. He does.
clear of him,
That's what
right?
I'm saying. Like, so pre-polls historically has been a little bit inaccurate,
Yeah.
especially for Canada
Mm.
and US. For example, Harris was winning in
Yeah.
US. That didn't happen. So even here, but now poly market was very, very, very accurate in US
Hmm.
during this election. So I'm saying
Sorry,
like there are
Carney is
so
at 76%, not
yeah.
81.
One thing definitely conservative. I think they had a very good chance कि वो higher ground लेते जब
Hmm.
ये टैरिफ वॉर चल रही थी कहते कि बिकॉज दैट्स व्हाट द थिंग दे जस्ट गॉट इनटू पब्लिक प्रेशर टू सेइंग नहीं ठीक है रिटेलिएट करो सारा कुछ अगर वो डैनियल स्मिथ की तरह ये ग्राउंड ले लेते ना कि हमें रिटेलिएट नहीं करना चाहते चाहिए और अभी आके जिस तरह ट्रम्प ने दैट माइट हैव सेव देम अ लिटिल बिट बट
Hmm.
अब लोग ज़्यादा पिस ऑफ हुए हैं कि इन्होंने लिबरल्स का प्रेशर लिया लिबरल्स ने कहा जी एल्बोज अप और ये और वो और उस टाइम पे ये चुप रहे थोड़ा इन्होंने कुछ दिन लगाए अपनी सो वही चीज़ होती है टाइम पे कही गई बात और टाइम पे ली गई स्ट्रेटजी सो दैट कॉस्टेड देम अ लॉट
Did you see the Carney's response to the question about Palestine?
I
या
did, and then he took his statement
दैट
back after
या
6 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
नो ही डिडंट टुक इट लाइक
He said,
नॉट
I didn't hear the word genocide.
oh I
Oh,
didn't see that but because one thing for Israel, like you say something like that, and BB will come at you. Like I think
Yeah.
he tweeted 3 4 times. Other than tweets, I'm not sure what he must have done.
yeah. But
Yeah.
also another interesting bit was, did you see Netanyahu and Trump in the White House
Yeah.
after? So after after the US announced tariffs, like Israel, like Netanyahu was straight away in White House, like very trying to be very friendly and uh, like announcing that we are making these tariffs zero and everything, expecting that US is also gonna roll back the tariffs, but they no, they did not. They kept the 10%.
Yeah.
And also, I think Trump, in that very conversation or after that, they're having these talks with Iran, which they're not liking very much.
Yeah,
They're
he also said that we do a lot for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He was like very yeah, not very welcoming towards him. And I was surprised it wasn't like picked up that much by the news at all. Maybe the news was.
Yeah, you know why? Anyhow, so एक चीज जो बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग है, ट्रम्प की फर्स्ट टर्म में ट्रम्प एक्चुअली गॉट वेरी क्लोज टू लाइक पैलेस्टीनियन लीडरशिप, और
Yeah.
उसके अंदर भी अगर वो सारा रोल पढ़ो ना, किस तरह से उनकी इंटेलिजेंस आई, कैसे उन्होंने टैप करके बताया कि दिस इज व्हाट ही हैज बीन सेइंग अबाउट यू इन प्राइवेट मीटिंग,
Mhm.
वरना ट्रम्प तो उसकी तारीफें करता नहीं था तब तक।
Yeah, yeah. He actually in last time stayed in his house.
Yeah,
Netanyahu
so
was literally staying in Jared's bedroom.
Yeah, Jared was their Middle East guy. I
yeah,
think this
because
time
Jared ने
this
लेके
time
सारा,
it's his son, Don Jr. I think he has handed it to him
So I have a
2 years.
question. Do you guys think that Palestine could take some of their votes from liberals to NDP?
No, I think I
NDP,
Mark Carney might have taken back his
but
statement.
everybody knows, yeah,
Yeah,
everybody knows
I
that.
think the message was sent.
No, I don't think that Carney has like the his history of opinions over Israel has not never been that great. He the arms
लास्ट डील में
embargo,
भी उसने ट्वीट की है, वो तो उसने
yeah,
गलत तरीके से नहीं ना सुना, लाइक दैट
exactly.
दैट शोज क्लैरिटी एंड एवरीथिंग।
Yeah, and the arms embargo is he has like a very solid stance on it. He wants that to happen, and he's very much standing on it. Um, but there is a lot of anger of people from way Trudeau handled the Israel-Palestine situation. So I'm thinking, do you think that could swing uh, votes for NDP? Or
I
does Carney actually change the way people were looking at liberals?
Yeah, he
He
certainly
hasn't said much
has.
other than this instance, so I'm not sure if it changes anything.
I think he already has. Like imagine
Yeah,
if Trudeau were contesting this election, like this election was
But वो तो
lost.
जनरल चीज है ना, but he's not like changing, he's not publishing his policy on Palestine Israel conflict, right?
yeah,
Yeah, but
Like there
he's
is not a tremendous paradigm shift जो उसने कहा हो कि वो ट्रूडो ने इस तरह किया है, so that would make me as a Palestinian Canadian supporter to change my vote
yeah, but no
for।
one would address that question.
बट ट्रूडो ने भी बड़ी जगह पे पैलेस्टीनियन सपोर्ट की है, लाइक आई नो,
yes.
क्योंकि वो तो सारे ही वेस्टर्न लीडर, लाइक ऑब्वियसली दे डू हैव अ रिलेशनशिप विद इसराइल एज वेल, बट ऐसा नहीं है कि ट्रूडो ने भी पैलेस्टीनियन सपोर्ट नहीं रखी हुई थी।
Yeah, but
इट्स अ वेरी होम्योपैथिक सपोर्ट, सो कार्नी की भी
it's
इतनी ही
actually
थी।
a very thin line where like whenever you get asked such a question, you being a politician heading into an election, it's a
And I
very thin
think,
line.
yeah, I would expect the same. Like, what other option do they have?
I
To be
can tell you
very,
what option you can have. You could have an option of what Donald Trump did. That guy, when he landed in Michigan, he he just came down his plane and he openly spoke in favor of he basically said that Biden, he hasn't been doing enough for Israel. I have spoken to Netanyahu and we are gonna do so and so. Right after that in Michigan, right after that
he
conversation,
said the same thing for Palestine
he
as well. He
went to
said,
the
I,
mosque and he had this gathering arranged by a lot of the Muslims, and he addressed those, and he said that I'm going to do everything to end this war and whatnot.
Yeah, but we're discussing someone who has a brain, functioning brain, who would handle something with which can be audited, which can be traced back.
Yeah,
As
so
a Western leader, and I think, okay, some of us might not like my answer for this, but why we Muslims are expecting so much from Western leaders,
I agree
right?
to this. I completely
So
agree to this.
in my mind, I don't put other than humanity, other than those things, like why we are expecting so many things from them. For example, that French deal or anything or whatever the talks are happening, Muslim leadership is absent, completely absent.
Yeah,
Why don't we talk about that first and then look where the other things are? We bring religion into that. We bring politics into that. So as a politician, if you want to discuss that, that's fine. But if you say, oh no, this is because this has been happened, they have been genocide or blah blah, like इस तरह की जो चीजें हैं, they don't owe you anything. Trump, he okay, other than going to mass asking for Palestinian votes, like ये क्लैरिटी होनी चाहिए थी कि he will not do anything paradigm shift as for Palestine, which they have been doing for Israel.
but
So
I still think that it's the only upside for you in being in these democracies is you are if enough of the people are saying something, it has some weight, and if you can, you should.
हमारी अभी leverage क्या है उनके ऊपर? Other than like these small gatherings we are having, जो एक only leverage we had, that was boycott, and that did change some things, right?
Yeah, that was on the personal level, but on the
Yeah, but गवर्नमेंट लेवल पे हमारा वोट लेने के लिए उनको जितनी जरूरत होती है वो उतना बोलते हैं.
hmm. I think I want to also like add to this conversation here is the reason it bothers me more when the uh, Islamic countries leaders do not talk is कि आप पीछे history में भी जाते हो तो you what you say is that oh Reagan made a call to Israel and he used his leverage and stopped Israel that day when they were shelling over Palestine. We don't have that kind of history with anybody, and I get it. We don't like in a lot of places we don't have that kind of leverage, but we did had at some point. We had in a lot of places where we didn't see Saudi Arabia go and talk about it, right? We don't see UAE talking about it. We see Turkey talking about it, not doing anything about it. That's what makes me angry. Is uh, Turkey is one of the first countries that accept recognize Israel. It's one of the like one of the largest Muslim countries which supports Israel trade. There is a huge agreements they have. So coming out and talking about it, just like you're giving me some pointers and cool. People who do not, they are literally the amount of time Erdogan has spoken. A lot of people think Turkey has never recognized Israel. And then I have spoken to friends and I was like, no, they have, like
They always
long
had.
ago.
do you
They
think
had.
do you think the European protests had zero role in a lot of the European countries recognizing Palestine?
I don't think so. I think there is definitely a role it played.
Yeah, so that's why I think once when you have a voice, it holds some weight. It might be like very little teensy bit, but once you voice your concerns together and you are in good enough numbers, it has some impact. One
If
can
it doesn't
argue
end up
that
in a policy change, it's useless. That's my opinion on it. Other than AIDS, other than these small things, that's why if you want to solve this, to me, this is a mediocre approach we have been following for like last 50 years. Like, l- do a small gathering, look for a supportive argument, somebody win, send some support to Gaza or Palestine. It hasn't changed anything. It's not going to change anything.
I mean, I get there is always like uh, I always go back to this example where we say that the protests do not help outside, but we know that Zia tried to kill Benazir on the table during her operation, and the protest in UK literally stopped the operation, and she got out of the hospital and she didn't die, and then she has
Yeah,
a
but UK and
but
Israel is
yeah,
Israel
no,
has proper support system, right?
exactly, no,
Like the kind of okay, more than 50,000 people died, right?
Mhm.
Tell me one country who would have gotten away with it.
No, I completely agree with you. Or that's the point I'm trying to make. That yes, protests do have a way. There is definitely show of power. There is all of this that you do and you say it, but you do not create leverage from a small bit of population. We do not make a lot of population, like a segment of population in these Western countries.
Yeah, we are
While there
minority
are,
there.
yeah, exactly. So, but there are Muslim countries who have power, who have money, who does have leverage, aren't doing shit. There's literally nothing being done
Yeah,
in couple of years. There's nobody talks about it. They don't address
nothing,
it.
zero.
There's
Yeah,
nothing.
I don't mind like having this clarity in my mind that days won't change much. I don't mind having those show of power just to raise awareness, just to bring. I don't mind that, but I'm saying then, like as a consequence, expecting a paradigm shift, that's not going to happen in my point of view. That's where I think like people thinking London में 2 लाख बंदा इकट्ठा हो जाएगा. What did I do? 2 लाख सबसे बड़े प्रोटेस्ट लंदन में हुए थे ना.
Yeah.
क्या रिजल्ट आया? साल पहले हुए थे, 2 साल पहले हुए थे.
Yeah, I think we need bigger, like I do think we need
तो
garments
ये भी
to
इसलिए है,
actually make difference.
हमें मुस्लिम्स को ये चीज एडमिट करनी पड़ेगी. हमें पता है कि वेस्टर्न लीडर्स में फिर भी टॉकिंग अबाउट लाइक मोस्ट ऑफ देम दे स्टिल थिंक दे आर आंसरेबल. अगर वो एक जगह से वोट लेते हैं और वहां पे मुस्लिम पॉपुलेशन थी और उन्होंने किसी हद तक कमिट करवाया या कुछ कहा कि ये बात रेज होगी, वी नो कि दे विल स्टिक टू देयर वर्ड्स rather
Hmm.
than like Muslims leaders, Saudi Arabia and all of other countries. they they जमात इस्लामी को देख लो,
Hmm.
पाकिस्तान में देख लो, हर दफा यही मुद्दा होता है, हर दफा यही बात होती है, असेंबली की हद तक बात होगी, उस बात को कभी एक थोड़ी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, मैं कहता हूँ गलत पॉलिसी हो जो भी हो, अगर आपने उस पर वोट ले लिया है या बात कर ली है, किसी इंटरनेशनल फोरम पे आपकी जिम्मेदारी बनती है ना उस बात को लेके आने की. कितनी दफा ऐसे हुआ है? पाकिस्तान ने एज अ कंट्री एज अ नेशन कितनी दफा ये रेजोल्यूशन टेबल की हैं रिसेंट टाइम में.
Hmm.
पाकिस्तान की तरफ से जो स्टेटमेंट आती है वो भी बहुत केयरफुली होती है कि
जब
इसको भी
हम
नाराज ना कर दें,
एग्जैक्टली
इसको भी ना कर
एग्जैक्टली
दें।
Exactly.
जब वो चीजें नहीं हो रही, मैं नहीं चाहता कि ऐसा हो, मैं बस रियलिटी अपने जहन में बना रहा हूँ कि जब वो चीजें नहीं हो रही, हम नॉर्मलाइज कर रहे हैं वहां पे रिलेशनशिप्स को. यहाँ पे हम कहते हैं कि ट्रूडो या कार्नी या कोई और आए और वो फटे चक दे उस पे. ऐसा मेरे ख्याल में like,
हम वो अभी भी खिलाफत मूवमेंट वाले टाइम में बैठे हुए हैं जहां हमने अपनी हिजरतें करके अफगानिस्तान चले जाना है, बट हमने एक्चुअली इंटरनेशनल फोरम पे कुछ भी नहीं करना.
या सो आई थिंक ओवरनाइट तो ऑब्वियसली नहीं होगा, बट आई थिंक ऑल ऑफ दीज ये जो छोटी छोटी चीज़ें हैं ये इवेंट ये एक्यूमुलेट होती रहती हैं, एंड ओवर टाइम for example, I think the current generation is a lot more perceptive to hear, like have like a balanced debate on this as
Hmm.
compared to जो पिछली जनरेशन थी, राइट? सो मे बी ओवर जनरेशन ये
people
चीज
to
हो
people
जाए.
people to people connect definitely.
Mm.
वो बेटर हुआ है, मैंने खुद पर्सनली फील किया है.
Yeah.
ये मुस्लिम से तो छोड़ दो ना, जो पीपल टू पीपल लाइक अदर कम्युनिटीज के साथ भी है, तो वहाँ पे अब डिस्कशंस होती हैं, एक्सेप्टेंस है चीज़ों को, जो एक नैरेटिव मेकिंग थी वो अब चैलेंज हो रही है. सो
Also, yeah,
दैट्स पॉजिटिव.
also these, like some of these social media platforms, I was seeing, did you see Joe Rogan's last episode?
No, that's
No.
exactly why I think other than leadership or politicians, that's where we should spend more energy.
Yeah, so
Great.
Douglas Murray was on that podcast with this comedian Dave Smith.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, you should listen to it. He basically took him to the cleaners on this. So Douglas Murray,
Joe
like,
Rogan को I think I
नहीं,
saw a
जो रोगन को
small.
नहीं, डगलस मरी को,
अच्छा.
बिकॉज ही वॉज डिबेटिंग के तुम जो, वो बेसिकली जो रोगन को कह रहा था कि तुमने कितने जो हैं वो प्रो इसराइली बुलाए अपनी पॉडकास्ट पे, तो ही स्टार्टेड काउंटिंग, एंड फिर उसने कहा कि तुमने दूसरी साइड वाले कितने बुलाए, तो उसने कहा कि मे बी मैंने ज़्यादा बुलाए हैं। तो और फिर वो ही स्टार्टेड सेइंग कि उनको, दे आर नॉट एक्सपर्ट ऑन दिस टॉपिक, तो तुम उनको बुलाते रहे हो और वो बोलते रहे हैं। फिर वो साथ उसके डेव स्मिथ बैठा था, कहता है डेव स्मिथ इस टॉपिक पे बोलता रहा, एंड देन दे ओपन दिस कॉन्वर्सेशन, एंड अ लॉट ऑफ द, लाइक, आई डोंट नो व्हाट हैपेंड टू डगलस वेरी, ही वाज मेकिंग लाइक दिस स्टूपिड आर्गुमेंट्स, एंड डेव स्मिथ जस्ट टुक हिम टू द क्लीनर्स।
Okay. I'll definitely check that out. Sounds great. Thank you, guys. It was, I think, I'm really learning about economy for past two episodes. So, thank you so
Let's
much.
stop that. Let's not do more economy. Too much of economy.
Let's hope we don't need to discuss economy during next episode.
I at like definitely I. So, looking forward to the next episode. Thank you so much, Ali and Tosif. It was a
Thank
wonderful
you.
conversation.
Thank you, both of you. Bye.